Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our Advent read aloud of the Christmas Mystery. And we are on day 19. So let's go ahead and jump right in because we are getting close to the end of our story here. And I just can't wait to see how this is all going to end. So this is the picture that Joaquin is going to see and Mama and Papa when they open the door on the Advent calendar today. On the 19th of December, there was a picture of a Christmas niece in the Magic Advent calendar. He had long white hair and a white beard and was wearing a red cloak and a pointed red hat. On his chest hung a large silver cross set with a red stone. Mama read what was on the little piece of paper in the Advent calendar. Melchior. A procession was speeding through Asia Minor one day towards the end of the 4th century. They traveled across the high plains of Phrygia and past some salt lakes where the birds can stand on the water. On their long journey, they encountered bears, wolves, and jackals, but when a wolf or a bear came running towards them, they always managed to step aside by 1 or 2 weeks and avoid it. They climbed up through a pass in the high mountain range of Pamphylia, which stretches from east to west along the Mediterranean coast. A couple of thousand meters above the sea level, they caught sight of a figure dressed in green. It was a tall man, sitting like a living landmark at the watershed where the road began tilting downwards towards the Mediterranean Sea. As soon as they noticed the figure in green, Caspar and Balthazar began waving their arms and tried to run past the sheep. "Who's that?" said Elizabeth. "He must certainly be one of us," said the angel Ephraim. The stranger rose and threw his arms around Caspar and Balthazar. "The circle is complete," he announced solemnly. Elizabeth didn't understand this, but then the stranger came over and greeted her politely as well. "Welcome to Pamphylia," he said. "My name is Melchior, 3rd wise man and king of Agrascola." Then Elizabeth understood what he had meant by the circle being complete, for now all 3 kings of Orient were gathered together. "You have so many strange names," she said. "You're wise men, kings of Orient, and Caspar, Balthazar, and Melchior." Melchior smiled from ear to ear. "We have still more names. In Greek we are called Galagat, Magalat, and Sakharin. Other people call us Magi. But it doesn't matter what they call us. We are part of this story on behalf of all people on earth who do not come from the Holy Land." Elizabeth looked up at the angel Ephraim, and the angel nodded. "Yes, that's quite true." "Of course, one would not tell lies, surely," continued Melchior. "One would not have been a king of Orient unless one spoke the truth, surely. One would not have been particularly wise either, only seeming wise." He was so funny when he talked that Elizabeth couldn't help laughing. He had more to say. "Besides, I wouldn't have been called Melchior if I hadn't been fond of milk, nor would I have been called Sakharin unless I was fond of sugar. In short, I am so happy that I often want to sing and dance, and I'm always very happy every Christmas Eve, for that's when Jesus was born." "That'll do," said Joshua, striking a stone with his shepherd's crook. "To Bethlehem! To Bethlehem!" But Melchior spoke again. "We must greet the Christmas niece first. He lives just below here." With which they set off down the steep mountainside towards the Mediterranean Sea. While they ran, Elizabeth said, "Is it really true that we're going to greet the Christmas niece?" Ephraim pointed down at a town clinging to the side of the mountain. They could glimpse the Mediterranean in the background. "The time is 3:22. The town is called Myra. And this is where Paul came when he was traveling to Rome to tell the capital of the Roman Empire about Jesus. He founded a Christian community in Myra, too." "I don't understand what that has to do with the Christmas niece." But the angel went on. 200 years after Paul came to Myra, a boy was born here who was called Nicholas. His parents were Christians, and later on Nicholas was elected bishop of Myra. In Myra, there lived a girl who was very poor because her father had lost everything he owned. She wanted to get married, but it was quite impossible because she had no money for her dowry. Bishop Nicholas wanted to help the poor girl, but he knew her family was too proud to accept a gift of money. Perhaps he could have put some money into her father's bank account, suggested Elizabeth. Yes, although this was a long time before such things as banks existed. But Nicholas did something similar. He crept out during the night and threw a bag of gold coins through their open window. In that way, the girl got money to marry after all. That was kind of him. But it didn't stop there. He thought it was such fun to throw gifts through people's windows that he went on doing it. When he died, many legends were told about him. Later, he became Saint Nicholas. That turned into Santa Claus, and in Norwegian, into the Christmas Nisse. The word Nisse comes from Nicholas, and so do the names Nils and Klaus. Did he have red clothes, a long white beard, and a red hat? Wait and see, said the angel of Firiel. The sun had not yet risen. They stopped in front of a low church building in Myra. As soon as they stopped, the church door opened. Out strode a magnificent man with a long red cloak, a long white beard, and a red hat. Round his neck, he wore a large silver cross with a red stone in it. He almost looked like a Christmas Nisse, but Ephiriel whispered in Elizabeth's ear that the time was 325 years after the birth of Jesus, and that the man was dressed in quite normal bishop's clothes. Only later was the red robe of the bishop exchanged for black clothes in some places. It is Bishop Nicholas of Myra, whispered the angel. Elizabeth had an idea. Has it anything to do with myrrh? You do well to say so, for myrrh was one of the 3 Christmas gifts to the Christ child, said the angel with a smile. It's become the custom to give gifts at Christmas because of the gifts the 3 wise men brought to the Christ child, and because of Bishop Nicholas's generosity. In his arms, the man held 3 different caskets. He walked firmly towards the 3 kings of Orient, bowed low, and offered each of them a casket. Caspar's casket was full of shining gold coins. In Balthazar's casket was incense, and in Melchior's casket, myrrh. We are on our way to Bethlehem, said Caspar. Bishop Nicholas laughed so that his beard shook. Ho, you must take a few little gifts for the Christ child in the manger. You simply must do that, mustn't you? Ho. Since Elizabeth was standing in front of a real Christmas Nisse, she ran right up to him and felt his red cloak. Then he bent down and lifted her up on his arm. She tried to pull his beard to find out whether it was real, and it was. Why are you so kind? She asked. Ho, laughed the man in red again. The more we give away, the richer we become. And the more we keep for ourselves, the poorer we become. That's the mystery of generosity, neither more nor less, but it's the mystery of poverty, too. The angel Imperial clapped his hands. Well spoken, Bishop. Bishop Nicholas continued. All those who lay up for themselves treasures upon the earth will be poor one day, but those who have given away all they possess will never be poor. Besides, they have had great fun. Ho, for the greatest joy on earth is generosity. That may be so, said Elizabeth, but first you must own something to give away. At that, the good-natured bishop laughed so violently that his whole body shook. Elizabeth almost felt seasick as she sat on his arm. Ho, not at all, he said, when he had swallowed enough of his laughter that there was room in his mouth for speaking as well. You needn't own anything at all to feel generosity fizzing in your veins. A little smile is enough, or something you've made yourself. And with those words, he put Elizabeth down again on the mosaic floor in front of the church. Joshua thumped his shepherd's crook on the ground. To Bethlehem! To Bethlehem! As they moved off, they could hear the bishop's laughter behind them in the church square. Ho, 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 ho. Ho, 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 ho. Mama looked up from the paper and began laughing as well. It was infectious, and when Joaquin burst out laughing, Papa couldn't resist it either, and so they sat there chuckling, all three of them. At last, Mama said, "I think laughter is like the wildflowers. Both are a part of the glory of heaven that is strayed down to earth. But that kind of thing is easily scattered." Before Mama had finished reading what was written on the scrap of paper, Papa had brought out the historical atlas. "The names are on the map," he said, "and Paul really did visit a little town called Myra when he was on his way from Jerusalem to Rome." "Perhaps Elizabeth in the photo traveled the same way as Paul," suggested Joaquin, "because she went to Rome too." "And she had a silver cross with a red stone in it," said Mama. "The Christmas niece did as well." Papa laughed. Then he went into the sitting room to fetch the encyclopedia. He came back reading as he came down the passage. "Quite correct about the Bishop of Myra. He was the very first Santa Claus." "I must say, history is full of strange connections," said Mama. "It's as if small Nice had been jumping up and down all through the centuries." And that is our reading for today. So we got to hear a fun story about how the Santa Claus that we know today actually really was a real person way, 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 way back in history. And he did some really wonderful, generous things for people who were in need. And that also is the spirit of Christmas. That is also Jesus' lesson to us when he was here on earth and his example. He always wanted us to give to the needy, didn't he? And so it still is true today. So what can you do for someone who is in need today? And maybe in the next few days before Christmas, to honor Jesus on his birthday. Think about that. And if you come up with a good answer, or whatever answer you come up with, go ahead and put it in the comments. I would love to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode, because we're getting really close to the end. Only 5 more days until Christmas Eve and the big reveal of what the Christmas Advent calendar is all about. Have a great evening, and I'll see you tomorrow.